Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this big guy right here. This is the Spyderco Knives Rockjumper. So first off, in the name of full disclosure, this guy was sent to me directly from Spyderco for review. As always, I told them I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. They still sent it along. Nonetheless, we have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my very best not to let that affect the nature and quality of my review, but there you go, full disclosure. Next thing, size comparison. This is not a particularly huge knife. It's kind of an interesting place in Spyderco's lineup. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2. So what we see here is that in terms of sharpened blade length, we're not so far off the PM2, although it is done in a Warney configuration. And in terms of overall blade length, that is measured from the handle, the kind of blade length that the cop will measure if they are measuring your knife, it is almost identical to the Delica, even though the sharpened blade length is substantially higher. So there's that. And then here it is against, as always, the Ontario Rat number 2. And actually, one other comparison I want to make, because this slots in kind of right in the middle, is against this little guy right here, also from Spyderco. This is the Spyderco Pacific Salt 2, which is based on the Endura platform. So what we see here is that this ends up in a very intermediate sort of space, with much less ricasso, much less of this area down here, the unsharpened area, but about equivalent size, about equivalent handle size to the Delica, maybe a little bit chubbier, but yeah. So anyways, that's the size of the Rockjumper. It is someplace in the middle. It's a kind of Indela-ish in terms of size. Next thing, this is going to be a quick review because honestly, this feels in a lot of ways like an Indela, maybe a Delica with a slight couple of different. It's fine, but it's not all that groundbreaking, so I'm going to go ahead and blaze through it a little bit. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good and the not so great about this particular knife here. To start with, I like the name. It is entirely non-tactical. Rockjumper makes it sound like it's for bouldering. It's for, I don't know, going outdoors, for hiking, climbing, whatever. It feels outdoorsy, and that's the direction that I think the knife industry needs to be swaying towards most at the moment. I think that's a really safe direction, and I'm glad to see Spyderco going that way rather than calling this the Death-on Contact Stabatron 5000 or whatever some other company's coming up with right now. So anyways, I appreciate them going that route. It's a beautiful thing. Next thing, this is using a slightly different approach than, for instance, your Delica or your Endura, and that is to basically hide some of this ricasso area. What this has the effect of doing is that there is still this unsharpened area. This unsharpened area is actually important, right? Having that unsharpened bit down here is important as you are closing this knife one-handed. Opening it up, there's no problem, but to close the knife safely, what you'll want to do is disengage the back lock here, and then basically give it a little shake so that this unsharpened portion falls down against your finger, and then you can switch it around and close it the rest of the way. So you want that unsharpened portion there. But usually on the Spyderco knives here, what we see is that this unsharpened portion is sticking out from the handle, and thus legally speaking, even though this has a sharpened blade that's only about 2.5 inches long, the legal speaking blade is almost 3. And in this case, the knife is just over 3 inches, which, by the way, is a little bit frustrating, although the sharpened length is just a little bit under. But this is nonetheless a larger sharpened area relative to the overall blade length. It's kind of a little detail, but it's kind of a good thing. And it remains safe to close using the conventional method because that ricasso is kind of hidden in there. The pivot is a little bit further back into the knife. So there's that. Next thing, this is kind of a size option knife in a lot of ways, because remember, there is a Delica 4, which is in the Wharncliffe variety, right? This is coming in someplace between the Delica and the Indela overall. Honestly, what this feels like to me, as a big fan of the Delica, is this is like a Delica that discovered this Salvadorian restaurant I just found in San Diego, had way too many pupusas, kind of thickened up a little bit, right? As a result, the knife is, in terms of overall size, not all that different from your Delica, although it's just thicker, right? It's a little bit thicker in the pocket, it's a little bit thicker in the hand, it's just a little tiny bit bigger. In terms of actual overall thickness, it is a little thicker on this dimension as well. But basically, this is going to be a little bit nicer for larger hands, and it carries a little bit bigger, but I think for a lot of folks, this is going to provide kind of an intermediate size option, and especially if the Delica Warney felt like too little blade, this is going to be a nice option. So there's that. Next thing, ergonomically speaking, we're good to go here. Because we have this nice little guard area keeping you off the blade, as well as this thumb ramp, which is really well designed, at least for my hands. This is a Sal Glessa design, and Sal Glessa does ergonomics really well. This just fits in the hand beautifully. I'm just a big fan of that. So that's good. And it definitely, yeah, that just works very well as the classical Spyderco spoon clip, which is in black for whatever reason, although I guess it kind of works here. But this guy will help to fill the hand a little bit well. I mean, look, it's good ergos. It's also very grippy. This has the Spyderco, I think it's volcano texture. Is that what they refer to that as? Look, either way, it's got this kind of FRN texturing here that provides a great deal of grip. So coupled with this thumb ramp, this jimping, this grip here, this is not going anywhere in your hands. Even in the Vaseline factory, this is not going to be slipping out of your hands. That is an absolutely beautiful thing. Next thing, the fit and finish on this guy are pretty solid, right? We are right on the center here. Everything is working well. The action is nice and smooth. I'm a big fan of this guy, and fit and finish is a beautiful thing. Next thing, fully ambidextrous. This is a truly ambidextrous knife with a four-way clip, tip down and tip up, left side and right side, and complete ambidextrousness because the opening hole is the same on either side and the back lock is the same on either side. Okay, hey, cool, can't argue with that. One other thing, speaking of the clip here and the ambidextrous nature, look at this little landing pad area. This little area in the center here is, not only does it have, Spyderco Rockjumper, which I guess is nice if you forget what you're carrying, but this also serves as the area where the clip lands. The clip will, no matter which way it's mounted, land onto this smooth area, which means that your pocket is not being grabbed by all of this texturing over here. So this texturing is very strong for the hand, but it doesn't have any effect on the pocket. It's not tearing your pocket to shreds as you're using it. And that is an absolutely beautiful thing, and that's something that all knife makers need to be doing, not just Spyderco. If you're doing strong texturing, make sure you have a place for the clip to land that isn't that way. So that's good. Next thing, this has a big old lanyard hole, but guess what? The clip is properly positioned. The lanyard hole is below the clip, rather than having the clip being way up above, the lanyard hole way up above there, as Spyderco has been doing a lot lately. So I'm definitely a big fan of the fact that the lanyard hole seems to be playing second fiddle here, which is really where it belongs. And then finally, on the good side, the blade on this guy is quite nice. It's a relatively thin blade stock. It's a little thicker than the Delica, just overall, but it has a full flat grind and comes down to a reasonably thin edge. So that's good. And a Warncliffe blade is very nice for some tasks, especially kind of draw cutting tasks, like coming across something, like cutting into something. That's where a Warncliffe is really going to excel. For food prep and such like this isn't going to be a great choice because, well, there's a fair amount of space underneath the blade there. But for a lot of tasks, a Warnie can be very nice. So to me, at least, all that's the good is that it's got a nice blade. It's got a good lanyard hole, nice landing pad for the clip, full ambi, solid fit and finish. God, this is just a full review. I should just call it full review and be done with it. Anyways, it's got a good fit and finish, good ergos, nice size option, hidden ricasso, and I do like the name. On the great side would probably be the blade if I weren't doing a quick review, but we're just going to roll. Let's keep up the kayfabe here. Quick review. On the bad side, price on this guy is fine. It's not oh my god value, but it's not oh my god ridiculous. It's $85. Now look, Spyderco's Japan factory is generally just behind in the value game. Relative to Golden, relative to Taichung, the Japan factory doesn't usually impress with that. But you know what? It's not completely ridiculous either, and I can see somebody buying this and being happy for $85. So you know what? Okay, whatever. Not a huge deal. The only real turd in the punch bowl, so to speak, value-wise on this guy is the steel. This is in VG10 steel, and honestly, I am not a VG10 fan. This is, to be fair, it is a fine steel. People have used it for years, and frankly, it was a super steel at one point in time, right? A VG10 is absolutely solid, but the thing is, it's very easy to shop, and that's nice, but you're going to be doing it pretty regularly. And it just doesn't hold up next to some of the modern powder metallurgy steels that we're seeing these days. Carrying and using this guy kind of had feelings of just like, wait, is this already dull? It's a reminder why I don't really carry VG10 all that much. So I would like to see Spyderco banish VG10 down to like the bird line or something like that, and then move to something a little bit higher end throughout their Japan lineup here. It's just not, it doesn't hold up relative to what Spyderco's using in the rest of their lineup. I'm just not a huge fan of it. It works fine. It's okay for everyday carry, but it's either barely adequate or barely inadequate, and I'd like to see them do a little bit better, particularly at $85. And then finally on the bad side, the thing that bugs me most here is this blade heel. If we zoom in a little bit, what we see here is that, yeah, look at that. That's not great. Because you can see here the sharpened edge stops at a certain point. And that's where the plunge grind is here, and then they're not putting in a sharpening choil for some reason. And I understand their argumentation of like, oh, we don't put one in because it's very easy to make one yourself. And in fact, it is pretty easy to make a sharpening choil yourself. But dude, do a little bit better, right? Come a little closer to the edge there. Back it up to the ricasso, because this is going to be a pain in the neck when sharpening, especially a Wharncliffe blade, which you're going to want to be sharpening likely on a flat stone. Dude, I don't know. So this doesn't impress me much. Either put in the damn choil or at least make an effort to get all the way to the edge there. Otherwise, this just doesn't come across well. So, to me at least, that's what's bad, is that the blade heel isn't that good. VG10 isn't that impressive at this price point. And don't get me wrong, it's a fine budget steel. If that replaced 8CR everywhere else, I'd be totally game for that. But yeah, and then the price on this guy is okay. So look, final conclusion, this is a pretty good knife, right? It's got a different blade length and does it in a slightly different way, legally speaking. It's got a different size for us with a little bit of a thicker handle here. It's got good ergos, good gription, good fit and finish. It is fully ambidextrous, a nice clip position, and a good lanyard hole for a change, which I appreciate, as well as a nice blade for cutting. It is priced right up the middle, offering neither value nor a real ripoff here. VG10 is definitely not super amazing at this price, and the heel of the blade on this guy does feel a little bit like a missed opportunity. But my conclusion here is basically that it's good, right? The design is well considered. It's got solid DNA, right? It's related to one of the more popular lines of knives ever in the world, so to speak. And unlike a lot of the throw it at the wall and see what sticks kind of things, this is a very solid design. This is a knife that I can see somebody very much loving, very much enjoying, and very much appreciating. I can see somebody having this as their only knife and being perfectly happy with it. That said, it still very much feels like well, this is another option sort of knife. It's not changing any worlds. And in fact, I can't think of a person or a thing or a use that I would be like, oh yeah, you should get a Rockjumper for. It's fundamentally solid, but it's just kind of like, okay, this is also a thing now too. And especially in a world where like the Delica Wharncliffe exists, I don't necessarily know why they went there. It's fine, it's good, and it gives you a little bit more beef, a little bit more blade length, but that's really about it. So final conclusion, I think, is just like, this is a thing. It's a good thing. It's another solid design from Spyderco, and although I don't know that there's an instant use case for it, I'm sure somebody will jump on it, and for them, it will absolutely rock. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.